Was trying to get a mark in a scab that's right here on my head. There's one right here. There's one right here. So they keep targeting there because they keep saying that they want voices in my head. And I keep saying it's never been in my head. The other thing is they're obsessed with my hair again, because in their minds, if they can say that my hair isn't my hair, then they said how this was supposed to work was that certain people are in different groups in New York. And I have to tell you guys this because I don't believe this. But they said what they were trying to do back in the 80s and 90s was get all the light-skinned black people in a certain group. And I guess us darker-skinned people would be in a different group. And they said I was always in with the white people. I don't get that. So they said that that's how it was supposed to work, and that somehow they were supposed to collect me in with the black people. Listen, okay, I was always with the black people and the white people. Why? Because I went to schools. Most of my schools were predominantly white. They keep saying now that they weren't. They were. So they said that I was upset when Cardinal Spellman became predominantly black. First of all, I don't know if it became predominantly black, but what I think happened to them is that if I look at something or if I say something, they twist it to make it sound like I'm worried about whether something's predominantly black, white, or whatever. When I went to school, it was predominantly white, and it was predominantly white. And that's the whole point. Why change the facts after the fact? And I'm going to call this video that, changing the facts after the fact. They wanted to make it seem like it was a racial thing. For me, it wasn't. It was just what the Bronx was at that time. Over the years, the Bronx became less mixture of the different races. And now it's not as racially diverse as it was when I was growing up. And that's just life. They don't want to talk about the reality of things, because I honestly think that they wanted to change how the Bronx was perceived. And I told my mother this the other day. The Bronx was, when I was growing up, it had so many different types of people, different things were coming out of the Bronx. Now people are acknowledging it, but it took a long time for people to acknowledge the positive things that came out of the Bronx. There are so many actors and creative people who came from the Bronx. Things originated in the Bronx, but people didn't want to acknowledge that. They always wanted to focus on calling the city Manhattan. The city was never Manhattan. It consists of 5 boroughs: the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and Manhattan. But the Bronx is part of New York City. And that's the point. Everyone wants to minimize the contributions of the Bronx, but the Bronx has contributed so much. And part of what I think the people doing this to me wanted to do is change the Bronx into something it never was. And they don't like the fact that I always celebrate the Bronx. So they said, oh, we were surprised that you said, oh, I'm from the Bronx. I always say I'm from the Bronx. Or if I don't say I'm from the Bronx, I say I'm from New York City, which consists of 5 boroughs. They can't accept the fact that the Bronx is part of New York City. And that's part of how they twist things. They don't see the difference between saying I'm from New York City, which consists of the Bronx, and from the Bronx. They want to make it sound like, oh, well, that's not part of New York City. The Bronx is part of New York City. And if you're going to acknowledge New York City, you better acknowledge the Bronx, because we are and will always be one of the boroughs.